Welcome back to WRPL. It's the podcast where we talk about all the things we are watching, reading, playing, and listening to. My name's Ben.
And I'm Steve.
How's it going, Steve?
It's going well, Ben. Excited to talk about stuff with you today.
Yeah, we got a big summer movie. It's considered like the second big summer movie of the year. Like Fall Guy was the kickoff of the summer movie season. I don't think it lived up to that sort of expectation when it comes to summer movies.
I did see a post today. I'm not sure how accurate it is, but I think it said it's on track to make between 140 and 160 worldwide or something like that. And the budget was 120, something like that. So
plus marketing, which they spent money on. I saw that trailer so many times.
Everywhere, yeah. So it would not surprise me if this movie was, or if Fall Guy was a loss.
So we're going to talk about Kingdom of the Crystal Skull of the Planet of the Apes. But a couple of things before we get into that. A little bit of news things, sad news. Oh, actually, no. I always do this. I hold the die in my motherfucking hand, and then I start getting into this shit. So we're going to roll.
If we had listeners, they'd point this out all the time.
Every time.
They'd be in the comments. 7.
Ooh.
Lucky number 7.
Call it, Steve.
Okay. I'm going to go low. I'm going to say it's a 3. 8.
Okay.
Just slightly better than you.
What the fuck is our problem? All right, couple things off the top. Movie news and stuff.
Hit me with it.
Let me do it again. Sad news, Steve.
Oh, no.
Kraven the Hunter got pushed to December.
Oh, fuck.
I think it was an August or September release, which was already pushed back from last October. It was like, Jesus Christ, like 11-month push. And then now it's even further. We know it's going to be a bad movie, but I like Aaron Taylor Johnson. So I'm willing to give Sony another shot. They either need to finally hit or make something even worse than Madam Web and Venom. Like, if they keep making stinkers, I'm okay with that. It elevates every other comic book movie. Like, oh, well, at least it's not a Sony Spider-Man movie. So you bummed?
Sure.
And I wonder if it's like, oh, well, Christmas, people see movies. Aquaman did really well during the Christmas time. Maybe Kraven will do the same. I don't see it, but it's just they keep teasing, dangling that Kraven.
I wonder if you could even.
I'm craving that Kraven.
I wonder if is the trailer still on YouTube? Because
it's got to be.
I feel like I looked it up one time and it might have.
And they took it down.
They might have taken it down.
Okay, yeah, just for that date thing. But yeah, it's been a while since I watched that trailer. All right, we'll watch it after this. We got some casting news. Ralph Ineson is going to play Galactus in the Fantastic Four movie. Do you know that actor?
I do.
Yeah, the Green Knight. The
really great voice.
Amazing. Like, it's one of those, oh, duh. You got to cast someone with a bigger, larger-than-life voice. Cast the guy from The Witch who just vibrated the whole theater with everything he said. Amazing. Great casting. They were saying it was going to be like Antonio Banderas at one point, or what's his fucking name? Anton Sugar.
Oh, Javier Bardem.
Yeah, someone like that. I'm like, okay, that's cool. But this guy, that's awesome. And then at one point they said Anya Taylor-Joy was going to be Silver Surfer, and then so that would have been a nice witch reunion.
Oh, yeah.
But now it's not her. Now it's what's her face from Ozark, Julia Gardner.
Oh,
yeah.
Right.
Weird choice, but whatever. I guess that is. Oh no! And final news: there's going to be a Gollum movie directed by Andy Serkis, reprising his role as Gollum. How do you feel about them going back to it? Because we're getting an animated Lord of the Rings movie this year, which is cool. We don't know what type of animation. We don't know exactly what it looks like. But how do you feel about them bringing Gollum back for this snippet of one of the original movies? This tiny little part that really is kind of inconsequential to the bigger story.
Yeah, so from what I understand, even though it's called The Hunt for Gollum, it's really not going to be so much of a Gollum movie. It's more likely going to be a younger Aragorn's quest to find Gollum. Obviously, Gollum will be a character.
Yeah.
And I'm always happy to go back to this world. However, I don't think live action's the way you go back to this world.
Yep.
Because I think for better or worse, you just did it perfectly the first time, and everyone, for better or worse, will always compare it to that. Where if you go a different route, like if you do a stage play, if you do animation, if you do video games, you can do anything and it won't lessen the product. But anytime you go to the live action world, I feel like even though I think we're moving away from movies is still kind of like what we put at the top of like it needs to be better than everything
Yeah.
else, and you just can't. I mean, the Lord of the Rings trilogy is not only one of the greatest, is the greatest fantasy franchise of all time, one of the greatest trilogies of all time, and arguably the greatest movie of all time.
And we see when they went back to it, even with original director, writers, and actors, you get The Hobbit, and it just doesn't hit the same way.
Yeah, I mean, there's arguments for that.
Don't try to justify The Hobbit.
No. I accept The Hobbit for its flaws, but I recognize it as a lesser being than the original. But anyway, love Andy Serkis. I'll follow him to the ends of the earth just for all of his roles. But
can he direct it? Because he only has 2 directing credits, which was Venom: Let There Be Carnage, an even worse Venom movie, which I don't know how you do that, and The Jungle Book, the darker, grittier Jungle Book. There's a third?
There is another movie.
Oh, what's that?
He did Breathe with Andrew Garfield, where he was like, I think in I don't know if he had an iron lung, but it was like took place in the early 1900s. It was like a romance story, I think. It actually got good reviews.
Okay.
But no one saw it.
Okay.
I didn't see it. No one else saw it. But on IMDb, I looked it up the other day because I was like, let me just make sure he hasn't directed anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So it was Breathe, the Venom movie, and Jungle Book.
Okay.
But from what I can tell, Breathe did good critically, but just bad financially. Anyway, can he direct it? Up in the air. But this being a property that he knows, and he was a assistant director on the Hobbit movies, and he's working with Peter again. Like I think if there's a world that I could see him being good in, it would be this world.
Yeah.
But do I have much faith in this movie? I think might just be a little bit of a cash grab because I think if Peter could get it rid of, just like be done with Lord of the Rings, he would. But it's just, I can throw my name on this, make a fuck ton of money, and then I can make whatever weird documentary thing I want to make next, or like push whatever technology.
He's like an anti-Michael Bay, or like, no, you're not going to make another Transformers movie without me. Even though I said I'm done after this one, I'm making another, and then another, and then another.
I think if you're going to expand the Lord of the Rings IP, you just do it in video games, books, and animation. I don't think you go back to live action. I don't, unless if you're adapting one of the other books, go for it. But if you're just sticking with like this time zone, don't do it.
It's like the same with Star Wars. We got enough of the Skywalker saga, Clone Wars era. Let's go further ahead or further back.
Yeah.
And I feel the same with Lord
There's so much deep, interesting lore and other books that have come out. And like Rings of Power hinted at some of that stuff, but you could go back to Morgoth and his shit, like that they teased at the beginning of the Rings of Power. You have stories there. You have what was that book? Children of Hurin, which I think was about Turin, and I'm gonna butcher it, and people are gonna be mad at me.
Oh, fake fan alert.
But yeah, there's a bunch of great shit you could turn into this world that you could do in a live action movie, and it just be like its own separate thing. But anyway, we took too long on this.
Hey, no, that's cool. So I'm gonna start.
Go for it.
I actually listen to some stuff.
Ooh.
Of course, not music. You know me. I listened to 2 new podcasts. I had heard about them listening to The Weekly Planet, my favorite podcast, starring Mr. Sunday Movies and Nick Mason. It's one of them is part of.
No, is Sunday his first name and Movies his last name, or is Sunday Movies his last name?
Sunday Movies is like his full name, I guess. He's never really specified. His name's James Clement, but that was only revealed like a couple years ago. He didn't even show his face. He was just like a goat avatar for a long time, and then he did a big face reveal, and people went, "Oh, he's handsome. All right, cool." I mean, he's not like Brad Pitt or nothing like that, but he's a handsome dude. Anywho.
Congrats.
Yeah, good for him. So there is on their broadcasting network called Planet Broadcasting. It's a podcast called Do Go On. I don't have the names of the people in front of me. I'm sorry. But it's three hosts, two men and a woman, and they sometimes just have it by themselves, but they'll have a guest on, and that person will just teach you about something. So I've been going through and listening to the episodes that have Weekly Planet hosts on it just because I like them. I like listening to everything they do. And it'll just be, we're talking about Batman. And he'll just go and tell you the whole history of Batman. And of course, they're jumping in with their jokes. And if they're unfamiliar with this stuff, they're always asking questions. It's just kind of fun. And their topics range wildly. It could be anything that you bring to them. So that's a fun one. I haven't listened to a bunch of it, but I'm going through them. The other one I think you would really like, it's called I Was There Too with Matt Gourley.
I know that name.
Do you?
Yep. I don't remember where I know that name, but
So he finds actors or production people who worked in movies, especially in very famous scenes. They could have been a cameraman or an actor who is in a very pivotal thing, like in Star Wars with the "No, I am your father." Well, what if you were a sound guy at that time? What stories can you tell us about filming this particular scene? So the first episode is with Paul F. Tompkins, and he was in There Will Be Blood, and it's this, the scene kind of towards the beginning once they actually start talking, where he's like, I'm an oil man, and blah, 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 and he's doing that thing. He's in that scene. So it's just like, hey.
Paul F. Tompkins was in that
Paul
scene?
F. Tompkins is in that. And I guess you can't really tell that it's him, but you could hear his voice in the back of his head. But he's one of the guys trying to pitch stuff to Plainview. And so it's just like, yeah, how did you get cast in this? Did you know the director? Did you have to audition for it? What was Daniel Day-Lewis like behind the scenes? Did he stay in character? Did he break character? And it's a short little hour-long episode, and you just kind of go into the depths of what was it like shooting this scene. So I've only listened to that one, but there's one with Stephen Tobolowsky from Groundhog Day and Vasquez from Aliens. There's just all these big movies with big cultural impacts, and just maybe it could be a main actor in it or someone small. So I'm very excited to go through all those because I love behind the scenes stuff.
And what was the name of the podcast again?
I Was There Too. It is on Spotify if you want to check it out.
Matt Gourley he's a co-host on Conan O'Brien's podcast. That's how I know
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So,
all right. What do you got?
All right. I'm just going to list off some things that I've started to consume, but I won't comment on until we're done. So first up, I started a new anime, shockingly, because I talk a bunch of shit on anime, but I'm only 2 episodes in, and there are things I don't necessarily love, but I'm enjoying it.
Oh yeah, this segment is Steve's Little Shits. Whenever you have to just have a list of things, it's called Steve's Little Shits.
Steve's Little Shits. Here we go. It's on Netflix. It's called Delicious in Dungeon.
Oh, I've heard this. This kind of actually sounds really fun.
Yeah. So it's basically a Dungeons and Dragons adventure, which is right up my alley. But it's not so much about the show's about them slaying monsters, but it's not slaying monsters to defeat some great evil. It's slaying monsters so we can eat really good food.
Yeah.
And this band of adventurers, they meet up with this dwarf. This dwarf is like, I study monsters and how to cook them right, and he just makes them delicious meals, and it's just them just enjoying food while they're there is a main storyline quest that they're on.
Are they purposely in this dungeon, or did they accidentally get in here?
No, so the show opens with these 3 characters and their band of expanded characters fighting a red dragon. The red dragon defeats everybody and has the main character's sister in its mouth. And the sister casts a spell, and the last 3 people are shot to outside the dungeon. So his sister gets eaten, and they're like, well, we need to go back into the dungeon to rescue her because dragons digest very slowly over time. So they're like, we have a shot to go save her. So they go back into the dungeon. And it just seems like lots of people in this world are just going into this dungeon. The dungeon is massive, huge.
Mines of Moria.
Yeah, but bigger.
Damn.
Because they're going down, and I'm not sure how the structure quite works out, but they're on the 3rd floor, and it's just there's trees and little tower. It's kind of they're almost in a forest, but in a dungeon.
Cool.
I don't know how sunlight works or if the dungeon just led them outside to it. I didn't quite understand. Anyway, but But yeah, it's so far 2 episodes in, it's cute and fun, and like they are fighting things, but it's not like these big anime sequence where people are getting beat up and they're just like, I gotta access my true power of friendship or
Yeah.
whatever. It's just they kill them very quickly and they're like, all right, how can we eat this thing? And
Do they run into like, oh, you can't eat this part of this monster because it's poisonous, but if you cut around the vein,
kind of, yeah. So the
Okay.
first one they end up defeating is like this walking little mushroom thing, and
A
then
Goomba.
and they cut it sideways, but if you cut it sideways, it doesn't cut as well. It's like, oh, well, if I cut it down the middle, it splits right down perfectly, and I can peel it off. And if you cut this, like the dwarf, like really explains how to cook this thing, and you like, oh yeah, now I know how to cook this, but it's not a real creature. It's half Dungeons and Dragons adventure, half cooking show, and it's just a sweet fun time. But I'm
Awesome.
only 2 episodes in. I don't know if it gets crazy or anything, but
I hear it ends satisfying. It doesn't like shit the bed or anything like that.
and I looked it up, and the manga doesn't run super long, so I think this is maybe like a 3-season show kind of thing max. It's and it's still airing currently. I think
Are they releasing them?
they're doing them, I believe, weekly.
On Netflix, huh?
On Netflix, yeah. I don't know if that's because it's airing like now in Japan weekly, and so Netflix is just picking it up 2 weeks later or however it works. But I think the last episode of the season is this week or next week.
Okay. So you'll have to wait like 4 years before season 2 comes out?
Maybe, but like I said, not too deep into it, so I won't go and but
I heard a thing, and I don't know if it was this show. I thought it was, but someone was saying one of the most clever things they've seen in an anime, and if this is for something else, I'm sorry, I'm getting my shit mixed up, but they're fighting like these ghosts, and they only have a very small amount of holy water, so they put it in a vial and then put it on a string and swing it around them, and so when they hit the ghost goes through the glass but hits the holy water, so it repels them, but you don't waste any of the holy water spraying it all over the place.
That's fucking cool.
Damn, that's ingenious. So I don't know if I spoiled something really cool for you, but regardless, that's a cool
That's
idea.
probably a Castlevania thing or something. I don't know.
It definitely wasn't. Well, I mean, it could have been the newer Castlevania. I didn't watch that, but hey, what else are you watching? Give us some more shit, Steve.
HBO's Hacks came back.
Oh, okay.
I've talked about it on the podcast before. It's a show I really enjoy about a comedy writer who works for great character actress Jean Smart, who's this very famous comedian who is, on the older side, but is just looking for new material to sort of boost up her profile. She's kind of a dick. It's very much Devil Wears Prada, but funny. And it's just a great time, great jokes. If you're a fan of Hollywood, if you're a fan of comedy, if you're a fan of showbiz and all that good stuff, it's a really fun sort of behind the scenes with a bunch of like silly characters. It's created by the same people who created like Broad City, and they created another show, and I've forgotten. But Paul W. Downs, who was like the athletic guy that Abby worked with.
Yeah.
He's the manager on the show. He's very funny, and he gets teamed up with a like the boss's daughter, who's a total like idiot, but they're just back and forth of like the Odd Couple stuff is very funny. It's just a great show. So season 3's back. I've only seen the first 4 episodes are out, so I'm caught up with that, and still good.
Good.
Yeah. And my last thing of things I've started but haven't finished. It's not a show I'm gonna watch. But it is an episode of TV I watched, and I know it's weird. So in my YouTube scrolling deep dive, there was it. I don't know if I was just like looking at The Shield or something, but there was a like 20-minute long video of a Canadian cop show, and it was just like titled "School," and the whole episode is about a school shooting. And it's fucking great. I know it doesn't sound great, but the first 13 minutes of the episode is one long take.
No, and you're a sucker for that.
And I'm a sucker for that. Well, actually, I think there's a couple minutes in the beginning of the episode where the cops are just talking, but once they get to the school, it's just them going to the school, and all you just hear is like gunshots. You see dead bodies of students and teachers, and it's just pandemonium. All the kids are running around and they don't know where the shooter is, and they run into the shooter and they're having a shootout, but he's using people as human shields, and he's locking doors, and they're calling the police officers who are outside to and everyone's trying to come in. They're like, he's going down west. It's like, I don't know where the west fucking stairwell is, and they're all yelling at each other because they have no clue where to find this guy, and it's just some of the most intense television I've seen, because it feels so. There's no music. It's not played for, you watch Blue Bloods or something like that, and it's over dramatized or anything. It just feels like this is how it would go in terms of confusion and horror, and they don't shy away from anything. You see kids get shot point blank, and they're that just goes down. It is fucked up.
You said the show's called School?
No, the episode's called School. Sorry. The Canadian show is called 19-2. That's this partner's call sign.
Oh, okay.
So it's 19-2 responding to whatever. The station is 19, and they're just this guy's code is 2.
Got it.
It stars Jared Keeso. He's the lead on Letterkenny, the guy who wrote and created that show. Yeah. It was this was the show that kind of put him on the map before he created Letterkenny. Or before Letterkenny became the show. And I was just thoroughly impressed. And I was maybe I'll check the show out. I'm I don't care enough to watch the rest of the series. But I guess it's Canada's version of The Shield, because there's cops and you're not quite sure where their loyalties lie. And it seemed good, but it was a very impressive piece of television that I just wanted to highlight, that just happened to stumble across my YouTube.
Okay.
So if you want to see a very intense school shooting episode of television, check it out.
All right. How many seasons is the show? Do you know?
It ran for, I believe, 3 seasons, maybe 4, and I think it just kind of ended. I don't think it ended properly.
Oh, okay.
But I looked up, and it was received very well, and won a bunch of Canadian Emmys and stuff. It was. I'm surprised I haven't heard about it. But I guess the only thing that comes over this way from Canada is their comedy shows Schitt's Creek and Kim's Convenience and stuff. But if you guys want to check out better than average cop show, from what I can tell, 19-2 is the way to go.
Cool. Well, speaking of anime, I watched an anime movie called Mars Express. Ooh. I know you and I talked about it a little bit.
I'm going to pretend I haven't heard. What's Mars Express, Ben?
I'm going to use some of the same analogies and some of the things I like that I already discussed, but who cares? So this is, and as you know, I don't like anime, but our buddy Nick said, check it out. It's 88 minutes. It's a fun little detective story. If you like Blade Runner or Ghost in the Shell, but maybe something a little more simple, not as, high concept, which I would say it gets kind of that way towards the end. And a lot of detective shows, they're just looking for 2 missing college students who live together. And once you see what they're involved in, it gets bigger and bigger, and the story gets connected to the highest of the high. And, this goes all the way to the top, that sort of thing. But man, this could have been an entire series on its own. There's so much interesting stuff that they just barely touch on. They talk about this war that happened, and one of the partners died in that war, and so now his brain has been downloaded into a floating hologram head on a robot body, but he just acts like a normal guy. But he does some fun things where he'll grab someone, he can't hurt humans. He tries to throw a punch at his ex-wife's new boyfriend, but he can't do it. He just freezes. So he'll grab a suspect, but he can't hurt them, and then he'll go offline. So then the robot body will just stand perfectly still, gripping the person. And then the other cop is a recovering alcoholic, and she wants to get a drink at a bar, but the bottle has a little cap on it that can sense that she is sober for 3 months, and you have to give a verbal authorization for the bottle to open up and pour for you. And there's so much in here that could be fleshed out, the cop and his wife, or the war, and it's just touched on oh so briefly. There's a part where he is talking to this robot who's been jailbroke. That's an illegal thing. Robots are just supposed to be servants and things like that. They can't be autonomous. And they're talking to this hacker, and they see that this robot is kind of having sex with another robot, but they're just like sitting Indian style, or I'm sorry, they're sitting cross-legged, and like their palms are out, like they're playing slaps,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's like a little laser beam between them, and they're just kind of like connecting, and this is how robots are doing it. So this robot goes up to the partner and is like, "So I saw you checking us out last time you're here. You want to try it?" And the partner's like, I kind of want to do it with a female. And the robot just changes its voice, like, what kind of female? And then in a scene later, you see they're doing it. And it's not even important to the bigger story. It's just a small thing that's like 4 lines, 10 seconds of screen time that is so interesting. Of, well, what is it like for robots to have sex? Because you see robots doing drugs and not being able to handle being conscious. uh, it's just so filled with interesting stuff and great technology, and it's beautifully animated. It's violent. It's got some nudity in it, and the story just gets bigger and bigger. And it's one of the best, if not the best thing I have seen this year. This will absolutely make my top 10. If it doesn't, the rest of this year had some bangers of movies because this was great. And unfortunately, it was just in theaters for like a week. It's done now. So wait till it hits Crunchyroll or something like that.
I mean, if it ever comes across my desk, I'll be sure to check it out.
It's so fucking cool. I love it.
All right. So we talked about Lord of the Rings earlier. I'm going to talk about it again real quick. I watched, Jesus, I didn't watch. I listened to the audiobook of The Two Towers. Unfortunately, I couldn't get the Andy Serkis version, so I got a different guy. Not as good, but I really enjoyed this book because it was fun to see it told in a different way. Like the first book is pretty much the events played out in order.
Mhm.
But this one, the first half of the book was just Merry, Pippin, and Gandalf, Aragorn, pretty much all the Rohan Isengard stuff. And then that half of the book ends, and then the last half of the book is just Frodo, Sam, and Smeagol on their adventure. So it was weird seeing the Battle of Helm's Deep, the climax of the movie, this big epic battle that, everyone says is still the best battle put to cinema. It's just like, that's the halfway point.
Yeah.
And then the real climax is Shelob, the fight with Shelob and Frodo getting taken away, and just like the enemy has the ring now. And like reading it that way, I was just like, that's kind of like a really cool way to end a book because you're just like, oh fuck, like if you don't know what happens, like Sauron has Frodo now, and now you have to wait till like I imagine. People probably didn't care so much back then, but like imagine reading that book and going, well, fuck, now I can't wait for the Return of the King. Like, what's going to happen to the group and everything? What's Sam going to do? Like, they have the ring, but they really don't.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a good time. It's very much it was one of those things where like I can't believe that the Tolkien estate hates the movies.
Yeah.
Because he did a fantastic job adapting this. Like, yeah, there's definitely things that have been shifted around, and
but they have to be for a movie.
But they have to be for a movie. And obviously, you're going to cut some things out because you could have probably easily turned this into like a 3-season TV show. I mean, you obviously have to drag some stuff out and expand some more in the world and introduce characters that don't exist in the book.
Give Frodo a love interest. That's not Sam.
Yeah. So like you could have done it that way, but for the most part, like I think Peter Jackson captured the tone and the vibes and the characters. I mean, the one difference is like from the get-go, Aragorn wanted to be, he wasn't like a reluctant king. He was just like, yep, that's my destiny, is to be the king of Gondor at some point. So there's like changes like that. But for the most part, I think the movies did it better. No, but they did it the best way they could, and the books did. So, yeah, I was worried that it was going to be a slog or hard to follow. It's not, but I think it's only easy to follow because I'm already familiar with the world because of the movies. But yeah, so Two Towers, highly recommend. A lot less songs than in the first book because the first one has stacked with songs, mostly from Tom Bombadil. Fuck that guy. All right, so that's my review of Two Towers. Read it.
When you get to Return of the King, are you gonna stick with this guy, or do you think you'll try to go back to Andy Serkis?
I think I'll be able to get the Andy Serkis version of Return of the King. I'll go
Okay.
back to Andy Serkis because he's just a. Not that this guy was bad. It's just Andy Serkis really put on voices.
Yeah.
Where this guy he does just like with two characters in a scene, you need to know the difference.
Yeah.
But just some of the line readings he was doing, like, do you remember in the movie where you know, Sam is talking to Gollum. He's just like, look at you sneaking about. And then he sees him later, like, what were you doing? He's like, sneaking.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the way Gollum delivered it, you
Yeah.
could just tell it was like sinister and like a
Mm-hmm.
backhanded, like,
Yeah.
I got you, motherfucker kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where this guy is just like, hey, Gollum, what are you doing? He's just like, sneaking, Gollum said. And it's like, like,
Uh,
you're losing some of the
yeah.
juice to these
Yeah.
lines.
And then this is in the second book is like the Gollum book. That's why I like Two Towers movie the best because it's the best Gollum stuff.
Mhm.
And it sucks that you don't have that one with Andy
Yeah.
Serkis.
I mean, the guy was doing a Gollum voice. It's funny seeing all these. And I don't know if this audio version. I imagine it was after the movies.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if you go whenever the first audio version of Gollum was, I bet they all kind of sound similar. There's
Sure.
just people going like, master. It's just like that
Yeah.
voice.
Well,
So
if you like
it's
the
funny seeing
animated,
different people do different impressions.
the animated Hobbit movie, you know, that Gollum, he's like kind of more toad-like and very slow talking when he's doing. So it's, I'd say that one's
Okay.
pretty different.
I feel I still really want to watch those movies. I've only seen clips.
Yeah.
But,
Well, it's just the one movie, I think. Isn't there just one animated? It's like they did The Hobbit, and then that's
they did the no. They did
no, they did
they
The
did.
Hobbit, and
I
then they
think
did
they
the
Lord of the
first
Rings,
Lord of
but
the
they did it
Rings.
in two because I think there is Return of the King.
Yo, you know, you're right. You're right. Okay.
So I think
Yeah.
it's two hour and a half movies that covered Lord of the Rings
Okay.
and then the Hobbit
Okay.
movie.
Cool.
But anyway,
All right, I got one more thing. I'm not going to talk about. I watched a movie called Low Life. I watched Tales of the Empire, the new Star Wars animated thing.
Lola is Low Life Robert Pattinson?
No, that's High Life.
Highlight. That's yeah.
People love that movie. That movie sucks. No, Low Life was a to be original, and
Oh,
it's like, oh, you know, it's going to be good. But it's better than expected. But so I saw The Fall Guy, and I know you were going to see it. You couldn't, but
spoil it for me. I don't
that's
care.
fine. I mean, there's not much to spoil, but
I mean, I imagine it's going to play out exactly how I think it is, but
probably not. The trailer is lying to you.
Okay.
See, I thought in the trailer the dead body in the tub he finds is Aaron Taylor Johnson.
Gotcha.
It's not.
Mhm.
It's a different stunt guy. So Ryan Gosling is stunt guy for Aaron Taylor Johnson and has been for a while. And he takes a bad fall, hurts his back. He pushes Emily Blunt away. They're kind of seeing each other.
Mhm.
She's just a second camera operator.
Yep.
She's not a director yet. Pushes her away and goes and be's all mopey. Well, Aaron Taylor Johnson gets another stunt person, and that guy dies. You know, like he accidentally kills him, and that's the body that's in the tub. Well, before I get into other plot stuff, this movie fucking sucks. I did not like it. It's supposed to be a comedy. It's not funny. There was two parts I laughed. They were at the end. I can't remember one of the jokes, but the other one is just Aaron Taylor Johnson sitting in a car. They're shooting like this dumb alien sci-fi movie that looks like Cowboys and Dune. And he's sitting in the car rehearsing his lines, and he's just I killed aliens before they paid me to kill aliens. He's doing a Matthew McConaughey line,
Okay.
and it's dumb, but it made me laugh. Everything else, not funny. And the two, they don't have good chemistry. They're kind of insufferable. She like berates him when he gets out of his funk and they request him back on the set. She like mocks him for what he does, like pushing her away in front of everybody, but under the guise of this is what the story's about, and just making him look like a fool. And like, hey, fuckers, you're at work. This is really inappropriate and it's no one else's business. So he still loves her. She's pushing him away. She's able to direct a movie now. And the whole thing is they brought him back because they're trying to frame him for this murder. Because if Aaron Taylor Johnson if they find out that he killed this guy,
Mm.
his career gets tanked. So what's her face from Ted Lasso is like his manager, and she's kind of orchestrating this whole thing. And they want him to like get this phone and get him in the apartment so the cameras will pick him up and look. We're gonna deep fake the video because they have a video of Aaron Taylor Johnson killing this guy like at a party, just like kicks him, hits his head, and he dies. They're gonna put a deep fake over it to make it look like um, Ryan Gosling, and it's the dumbest fucking plot. Like, you accidentally kill this dude, delete the footage, throw the body off the balcony, and say he was really drunk and he slipped. Boom, done. But they go through all these links and all these people who are witness to it just to do a really bad deep fake of Ryan Gosling. Uh, it's just stupid. It's they share no screen time. Barely. I mean, they have some, but it's not till the end. They're always talking on the phone with each other, or they'll be on set. But this movie needed them to be going on the adventure together, and her going, "Oh my god, my movie's gonna fall apart," and him trying to save the movie and save their lives because they are being framed for this thing. But it's so fucking convoluted. I hated it. It's really not good. But yeah, I don't really want to talk much more about Fall Guys. So
Okay,
we'll be
fair
done with
enough.
that.
I mean, I'm sure I'm still going to watch it because my
Yeah.
wife wants to see it. When I get to it, I don't know. But if I like it, I'll let you know.
Yeah, and there are plenty of people who I've heard say, "Oh, it's just good fun," and it's not. And like oh, but the action's good. No, it's not. There's like one good stump, the dump truck scene where they're like skidding
Yeah.
on the street. That's pretty fun. They do this big jump, like a actual record breaking jump. It's not that impressive looking. It's I don't know. It's just how they shot it, but it doesn't look all that big, and it's just jump over and over a canyon. Whoopee! And most of the action and stunts in it, I did not find that impressive. And especially directed by a stunt guy, all about stunt guys. This is the love letter to stunt performers. Okay.
Where's their Oscar?
Yeah, well, I mean, and I agree with that. There should be more things for that, and you could throw fight sequences under stunts and choreography, whatever. But I don't think this is as sweet of a love letter, or it's a love letter surface level only, and they wanted to do a love letter, but they really fumbled it on the script. It's like, yeah, you guys are good at stunts, but maybe you're not good at story.
Fair enough.
All right, you want to get to our main topic?
Nope, I got one more.
Oh. Let's go.
So I finished. I can't remember if we talked about it off air or on the podcast last time, but started Baby Reindeer.
Oh, yeah.
I've now finished Baby Reindeer. This show is a fucking bummer, man.
I was going to watch it, but my roommate said, you don't need to watch that. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's very well made. I think there's a good chance you could see some Emmy nominations for this. It's only 7 episodes. Every episode's under 45 minutes.
I think some of them are even like 20.
Yeah, I think there's, yeah. And the first 3 episodes, although there are some intense parts, because it is a story of, a true story of a stalker coming after someone, it always kind of felt like, as crazy and intense as some of these moments are, it still felt kind of like a comedy, because you're just like, look how crazy this lady is, and what silly belief she has that this man has any interest in her, or like, so it kind of leads you into that way, like, although this will be serious, it's going to be kind of fun to tackle this subject matter. And then episode 4 happens, and episode 4 is basically a flashback episode where you kind of get his origin and why he is the way he is, and why he would sort of put up with this behavior for as long as he did. And it is a tough 45 minutes of television. It is not funny at all. It is just awful things that happen, and just makes you really...
Are they awful things that like he deserved to have happen, or just circumstances that happen to him?
I mean, no one deserves what happens to him. I'll say that.
But he's not like a piece of shit where, he was drinking and driving, got in a car accident. Like, well, he was kind of a piece of shit. So this is kind of a comeuppance.
So the whole show, you're kind of like, he makes bad decision after bad decision, and he knows it's wrong, but he can't help himself to make those bad decisions. And so like, you're angry at the stalker woman because you're like, well, this lady's mentally ill, and she's dangerous, and it's frustrating that she's here, and then it's frustrating watching him going like, dude, you should have went to the police forever ago, or once she did this, that was the end of it, or like, don't give her a second chance on this, like, and so you're just like, you're rooting for him, but at the same time you're just like, why do you keep doing this to yourself? And
Mm-hmm.
then episode 4 kind of tells you why.
Okay.
And it yeah, so like episode 4 ended, and I looked over at my wife, and she's just like, I did not like that at all. And then she was very upset, and she was like, it just made her so upset that like this kind of stuff happens to people all the time,
Yeah.
grooming,
Mm-hmm.
rape, and then just the sexual confusion and like depression that comes after it, and all that stuff. And then the final 3 episodes is just kind of more. It now has left any comedy away, because he is a stand-up comedian. He's still going to gigs, but you kind of see his life sort of like like anytime he's like gets good things happen to him, it unravels because of her and because of his past, but it ends in a kind of beautiful way in terms of like letting other people know what has gone on and how he connects with certain people and sort of turns, I don't want to say his life around, but he
At
you just
least
have
turns a corner.
yeah, he turns a corner for the better because he's able to talk about it, this shame that he's had for so many years, and yeah, so by the end I was like, it's a pretty great piece of television, I think, but it is a very tough watch because it's not something you saw and that someone wrote and you're like, wow, that was really good and that was fucked up. It was, oh, someone wrote this because it happened to him. That makes it
Mm-hmm.
even more fucked up.
Yeah.
Like, I'm basically watching a like home video of this stuff happen to this guy in
Mm.
a weird way because it's him like narrating throughout the whole show and like why his thought process of this, and even after she may or may not get like, I don't want to spoil anything in case you want
Sure.
to check it out, but yeah, it's just the whole time, even into the final episode, you're just like, dude, like what is wrong with you? And you know why, and it's like, what you're doing is wrong, or you're like, the right answer, but you can't help himself, and it
Mm-hmm.
fucking sucks. Like that's why people, the people who have like the shitty boyfriend who beats them, it's like, why does he keep going back to that guy?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, this is fucking why.
Yeah.
And it made me think new things, and so it's a
It made
pretty
my brain hurt.
yeah. So it was funny because I was talking to people about it up until episode 3. It's like, oh yeah, you should check this out. It's really good. And then I I watched episode 4. I was like, oh no, why was I recommending
I
this
got
show to
people to
people?
text. Uh-oh.
I texted my buddy because his girlfriend's pregnant, and I was like, look, man, I don't know like how she feels about these kind of things, but just so you know, like, I'm sorry I recommended this, but episode 4 is a tough watch. I'm just preparing you guys. And they're like, oh yeah, we're already on episode 5. I was like, fuck! But they didn't seem to care.
Did you see that the real woman? There was like an interview with her, and it was like contradicts herself the entire time. Like I never even knew his address, and I never sent him any letters. I sent him about 12 letters, and just like would say no, this didn't happen, and then talk about how it actually happened, and just constantly contradicted herself the whole time. Like, oh, so she's just a crazy person.
Yeah, I didn't watch the interview, but I know that it exists, and I know a lot of people are upset about it because like, why would you give this? I mean, I'm always on the camp of if there's two sides of the story, I'd like to hear both
Yeah.
sides because we shouldn't just hear one side and assume it's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's like if this side is true, then we're giving a platform for
Yeah.
this, stalker person to spew whatever lies she wants to and cause all sorts of ruckus or whatever. But and also, like, who gives a fuck about Piers Morgan? Fuck that guy.
Yeah, for real.
So, but I didn't watch it because I now that the show's over, I want my hands clean of it.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
need to.
yeah.
I'm never gonna watch it again. It's not a show I necessarily recommend to people, but it's just like, it is good. It is worth watching, but it is upsetting.
All right. Well, I know I have like Interview with a Vampire comes back tonight, so I'll have something to watch. But that's only, that'll probably take over my Shogun slot.
Yeah.
Now that I don't got Shogun, I could watch this. But these past 2 weeks, I haven't been watching shit. So maybe I'll throw Baby Reindeer in the mix, or I'll make it my like lunchtime watch. And
Yeah.
most of the time, it's like, pitch meeting there'll be like a new pitch meeting. It's like, okay, that's what I'm watching during lunch. I know it's only 5 minutes, but that's the thing I'm going to watch. And if I can't watch the whole thing, like if it's 40 minutes, I'm not going to watch at lunch. I only have an hour, and I have to travel and blah 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 blah.
I would just say watch the first like 3 episodes, and if you're not digging it by then, pop out.
And if you are, you won't be after the next episode. Okay, now do you want to get to our main topic?
Let's get to the main topic. I'm done. I don't have anything else.
Cool. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, directed by Wes Ball.
Wes Ball of Maze Runner fame.
Which the first and third aren't bad. Mm-hmm. Second one's kind of nothing. But they're enjoyable enough. A lot of those are going to be the movies that people will look back on 20 years and go, oh, this guy was in it. Oh shit, that person became famous. It's like all these kind of big stars who getting their start. But following the last 3 Apes movies, which since I wasn't watching anything, I said, fuck it, I'm going to watch the Apes movies again. But I have lost my Hulu access, so I couldn't watch Rise. But I was okay with that. That's the one I've seen the most. So it's fine. I'll skip it. So I went to Dawn, and, we were talking about it not too long ago, and I didn't love the ending. Mm-hmm. But after this rewatch, I kind of love that ending with the fight on the tower. Mm-hmm. I just think the main problem with this one is the humans don't have, not the main 3, like the little family, but Gary Oldman. Mm-hmm. And the motivation behind them isn't good. Like, he's supposed to be this bad guy, but really, like, the apes fucking attacked him. What is he supposed to do? Not fight back?
Right.
And then, but he is willing to blow himself up and his friends to take down the tower. I just think there needed to be a bit more with him to really, really sell it. And so then I watched War. War is the best one. I don't care what anyone says. War is the best. Not only, like, special effect wise, I think Woody Harrelson is probably the best villain out of all of them.
I was going to say, yeah, I think if the series has one problem, it's a villain problem.
Yeah. I like Brian Cox in the first one. Now, he's a good, like a shitty zoo keeper. That's a good villain. Sure. But he's not in it as much.
But just, in terms of, like, stakes, like a zookeeper isn't like that.
And then like David Oyelowo is
just a businessman. It's just
like, okay, it's not enough.
Yeah, it's enough to get it started, but
yeah,
like they're forgettable.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, you could say in the second one, well, the villain's Koba.
Sure,
that's the bad guy.
But I mean, he's a great villain.
He's a great villain. And I forgot that he kind of comes back in Caesar's mind of just being like, hey man, just fucking die, just join me, and let's get out of here. But I really like this one because it's a little bit of a road movie. They're like hitting the road trying to find their people. It's a prison heist. There's like kind of buddy comedy stuff with Bad Ape. Mm-hmm. I forgot Steve Zahn was in it, and he's maybe like my second favorite of all the apes. He's just so funny. And
who's number 1? Caesar?
No, I like Maurice.
Oh, okay.
Maurice is just a loving orangutan.
Yeah.
And of all the looks, like Caesar looks great, but you can tell that that's Andy Serkis. They put enough of him in there where it's a little close to the uncanny valley where you say, that's not a real ape. But you look at Koba, you look at Rocket, you look at Bad Ape or Maurice, those are real fucking animals, especially Maurice. It's insane. Even in the first one, he's the best looking out of all of them. It just seems like they taught a real orangutan to do sign language. It's unbelievable, the special effects. And then now they're in snow and they're getting wet. It's crazy. And they fucking kill his son. They kill his wife. He only has his little baby left. It's the stakes are so high. And I don't know. I just love War better than all of them. But my problem with that one is in the end, there's this other army coming. Who the fuck are they? And
they just get wiped out at the end.
Yeah, there's an avalanche and they're all dead. And as imagine that we are the apes. You don't know who they are, but it just needed a line or two of like Woody Harrelson says, like, they're not joining us. Wink, wink. And then that's the end of it. Like, oh, they're fighting them. But for why? Who are these people? And why are they fighting Woody Harrelson? Is it just to like get the weapons or whatever? are they on the side of the apes? I
It's been
think
too
that's
long. I mean, there's probably a line that explains, at least gives you enough detail to go like, okay, I understand why this violence is
I don't
occurring,
know.
but I don't remember because it has been a while.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's one of those franchises. Like to this day, I've never seen any. I mean, other than the Mark Wahlberg one, I've
okay.
never seen any
I
other
tried to
Apes
rewatch that
movies.
one this weekend, but I couldn't find time.
Uh, so yeah, my first introduction to the Planet of the Apes franchise was the Tim Burton Mark Wahlberg one,
Yeah,
which when I was younger, I was like, I remember
this movie's fucking
this
sweet.
movie's fucking sweet.
Yeah,
They used a rocket ship as like a blast
yeah.
that like took down a big portion of the army, and they all went out. And
It
there was
takes out like 8% of the army,
whatever.
and then most of them just
But
get
then
back up anyway.
Tim Roth was really
Tim Roth was
intimidating
fucking
with
great.
like his double knife fighting, and then
Paul Giamatti
uh,
killing it as another orangutan.
as
Orangutans are the kings of these movies.
Orangutans. No, that doesn't
No,
work.
no,
But Michael Clark Duncan is like big badass
yeah,
gorilla
yeah.
warrior.
Guy that
So,
played Shao Kahn in Mortal Kombat is one of the apes.
oh
He's like
really?
this. He's a sympathizer, the human sympathizer that helps him, and then
Mm,
Michael Clark Duncan kills him.
yeah, I might want to watch that movie again.
I know it's except for that stupid fucking ending, and Mark Wahlberg and sexy supermodel cave woman. You know, like there's some bad casting on the
Yeah.
human side, and there's a dumb ending. But if you look at just a simple story with really great practical effects, it's not bad.
Yeah.
Except that it's kind of bad.
But as I was saying, I never saw the original. Like I know what happens. I
Yeah.
know the big twist at the end. It's such like iconic cinema. Like you just know that movie even if you've
Yeah.
never seen it. But I don't know 2 and 3 or whatever.
Yeah, there's
Well,
5 of them, and they all suck.
yeah. So this one was how I really got into the franchise. And what if they never made anything after war? I would have
Fine.
been happy.
Yeah.
It was Caesar's story. You know what's going to happen. The apes are going to rise, and
They're gonna flourish,
And then one
and-
day, Charlton Heston's going to land. But it was a perfect trilogy. So when this movie was announced, I was like, "Do we need it?" I mean, obviously, we were going to get it. You
Yeah.
can't let a successful franchise die until.
And this was when Disney got Fox, and they initially greenlit it immediately. Like, oh, they're just looking at all the Fox properties that made money, and they're greenlighting whatever.
Yeah.
This is gonna suck.
And we don't have Matt Reeves because he's doing the Batman stuff, which I'm not disappointed about.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Matt Reeves made 2 fantastic films, and so like passing off to someone else,
Yeah,
you know,
I'm fine with
how
that.
how what's it going to be like? So now that we did all this backstory, Ben,
Sure.
before we get into the main story of it all, what'd you think of it?
I really, really like this movie, and initially I thought I'm giving it a B plus, and then I thought about it and like just for effects alone, and how difficult it would be to create something that is so goddamn photorealistic. I gotta bump it up to an A minus. Then I kept thinking about it, and there's so much that I love about this movie that once it gets to a certain part, I don't love nearly as much.
Mm-hmm.
And so I dropped it back down to a B plus.
Okay.
I think all these characters are really interesting, believable. I like them. I like the world. I like our villain. It's just like the Godzilla movies. These humans fucking suck. And they are the worst part of it. This actress gives nothing of a performance. She is so stone-faced and boring. I know she's not supposed to be making jokes or whatever, but she does nothing. And I knew something was up with her from the get-go. She's too, I don't want to say pretty, but like her clothes are like, oh, I just got a tank top with a couple little scratches on it. And she looked too modern to be one of these cave people. But all in all, I'd say this is a really good movie that I don't love where they may be going with it.
Okay.
You?
Yeah, I really like this movie. I don't know if it's number 1 of the year. I don't remember what I've seen this year.
Yeah. It's not better than Dune 2.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. But I went into this movie not expecting much from it. And it's also a movie I wouldn't necessarily say like is better than the other ones, but at the same time, like there's so much I like about it. I want to put it like high on the
I'd say
list.
it's better than Rise, maybe. But then I think about Rise, and just for the scene of Caesar saying no for the first time and not knowing if he was going to be a talking ape in this movie, it sent chills
I
down
remember
everyone's
watching,
spine.
yeah, with a crowd, and everyone was like, and like
Yeah,
those moments are pure
that's
bliss.
enough to kind of put it over this movie because I don't think this movie really has any of those moments. So I'd say it's probably the fourth.
Yeah, but that being said, I still freaking really really like this movie,
Yeah.
and it's not action heavy at all.
No,
There's
no.
like really only two big action set pieces,
Yeah.
and they happen at the very beginning and the very end. So there's
Yeah.
just, you know, long chunks of this movie where it's just people, not even people, just monkeys talking.
Yeah.
And I was never bored,
No.
or it's just the. We talk about how the special effects are, and they obviously got better as the series went along. But I watched this movie, and I'm the whole time just like, I can't believe what the fuck I'm looking at.
Yeah.
Like, not only do the apes look great, but like the world looks great.
Yeah.
And I went back and watched clips on YouTube of Rise just to like refresh my memory on like how that looked, and it
Rise
looks
is rough.
Rise looks rough,
Yeah.
and by no means bad, but
No.
just like rough in comparison.
They don't merge with the surroundings as flawlessly.
Mm-hmm.
Caesar's face looks great. All the apes look good, but when Caesar's sitting in the back seat of a car, it doesn't look natural.
Yeah. But the whole time watching this is just like, it just seems to me like, yeah, these apes are fucking here. And I couldn't believe it.
This was the series that after watching War, we've talked about in the past, if you could go back in time and show people from the past a movie, like people say Transformers, that would blow their mind. You go to the 70s and you show them Transformers, they'd be like, how did you build a robot that could actually do that? I want to show them these Apes movies and lie to all of them and say, yeah, we have talking apes in the future and they're actors.
Oh, that'd be a funny like SNL sketch or something, or just like talking to the apes after like on the set or whatever.
And they have like British accents.
Oh, of course, yeah, they're all British actors. They went to Juilliard or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I really liked Noah.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to spend more time with other characters.
Yeah. I wish his friend and his little girlfriend were on the trip with them.
Yeah, I wanted to bond with those two more.
Yeah.
I agree. Freya Allen plays the girl in it. Doesn't really do anything. You could have put anyone in that role. Made her girl, boy, old, young. It all would have done essentially the same thing.
Yep.
But and cut out William H. Macy. What a waste of a cameo.
Yeah, and I'll have questions about him when we talk about the ending.
But I like from the get go, what sold me from this movie from the jump is the 20 to 30 minutes you spend at Noah's home,
his village.
His village. Yeah, thank you. Just because the idea of apes becoming bird people.
Yeah.
They raise eagles to help them hunt and all that stuff. And they have a bonding ritual where if you're a young warrior, you go up and you climb to the highest tower and you steal an eagle egg and then you raise that egg and you bond with it and then that becomes your eagle. It's like, that's such a fucking cool idea. And just using broken down radio towers or
the satellite dishes,
whatever it is, and just like building this like fucking Lord of the Rings Lothlorien house out of like trees and stuff. So it's both science fiction but also very natural to like what they could build, and just seeing like a society here. And then to go out of there where they have never heard of Caesar, and now there's a world where like, oh, you haven't heard the word of Caesar? Yeah. He's our Jesus Christ. It's like, I fucking love that idea too. It's just like, here is this God figure that he was the original ape or whatever, and he's apes strong together or together strong, and apes do not kill. But then there's other people just like, oh no, we kill because Caesar's like, well, we need to be strong, and we need to like defeat our enemies. It's just like, it's what we do as humans. It's like these apes have advanced enough to like, oh well, we can split words and change our doctrines into whatever our needs are. And it's just so fucking fascinating. I wanted to see what else other apes across the world have created. Like, I want to see an ape fishing village. And, are there apes who are like really into science or something because they found like all this human stuff and they have been able to decode it because maybe they're is a smart human or whatever. But we'll get into that later because I'm not sure how that works. But anyway, what else you got?
So, once again, my favorite character, Raka.
Raka, yeah.
This
He
orangutan,
Rakas.
he does. My roommate leaned over to me because he said, "I want to hear your bird song," and
Mhm.
Noah's like, "Nah, I ain't doing that." And she leaned over and like, "He's gonna die," and Noah's gonna sing the bird song to him as he's dying. Like, oh yeah, you're probably right. And then I was like, no, they're not gonna kill Raka. The Maurice survived all the other ones. You don't kill the orangutan. You could kill the gorillas. You could kill the bonobos. No one cares about them, but you keep the orangutans alive. And they fucking killed them.
The orangutans are the wise old wizard character, you
Yes,
know.
because there's a video I saw recently titled "Imagine being a primitive person bounding and going down a river and seeing this for the first time." And it's this orangutan with long hair, and it's just sitting on the edge of a river, and he's just kind of like waving at the people, and it just looks like a Disney animatronic or a person in a suit.
Mhm.
It's a person. It may not be a human, but it's a person.
Right.
There's intelligence there, and they do him dirty. He just goes over like a waterfall. I thought he was going to show up.
Knew he was going to come back, and then he
And
didn't.
then he didn't.
And it drove me up the fucking wall.
And maybe he'll come back later. They can still do it.
Yeah.
You just see him disappear in the water. So maybe he's not dead. But I thought that was a lame bitch ass death, and the fact that he didn't come back pissed me off.
Because the role of cinema is if you don't actually see them die, or like you don't see them go down in a way that's like definitively like yes, they are dead. It's like if you just see them get brushed away by water, they're coming back.
Their head has to be cracked against a rock, and you see him go under. Then
you see his back float down the river,
his face
like,
down.
Gone. Something.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that drove me nuts because I'm just going to jump to the end.
Sure.
When the final fight happens, I was like, oh, this is where Raka comes in and like saves the day.
Yeah.
And then doesn't.
Like when they broke the dam, he should have rode in on a surfboard wearing sunglasses and the cowabunga, dude. Something. Raka! Spuds McKenzie all of a sudden. But I love all that stuff of them walking and talking about humans, of like they're in a mall and they're like, maybe this is where they raised humans and they took care of them. Like they don't know, so they're just speculating like we do with dinosaurs.
Yeah. Or it's like, when we went over to the pyramids and we're just like, what is all this? It's like, how did this society, like, we're finding these ancient civilizations and trying to figure out what they were. And just, you're watching these apes, like they're discovering that it, I think the theory is that it's been like 300 years since the end of war. And so,
which was only, I think, 15 to 20 years from the end of Rise. It's not super long.
Yeah, no, because I mean, it's only the lifespan of a gorilla. I mean, not a gorilla, a chimpanzee.
Yeah.
So upwards of 60 years, but I don't think that's what it was. But yeah, now we're 300 years in the future, and it's just like, oh, this ancient civilization that we barely know that of humans. Like we almost never see them out in the wild because there's so few of them left, and it's just so interesting to see like how little time it takes to make a civilization. Like, just how can we even speculate on how they lived?
They see the buildings, they know they're covered in vines, and like, we don't know how this shit got here. It didn't naturally grow here. It was just here. What happened? Who knows? Let's see. What do you feel about Proximus Caesar?
I feel like he was the weakest part of the movie.
Okay.
I like him from a character design standpoint. I like the idea of a king monkey.
I'm Caesar now, bitch.
I think he was fine in for what the movie needed to be for like a villain character. I liked that, he had this human companion and he's like learning, having him read to him. And so he could be smarter and a better leader. And he got really into Roman history. And that's sort of how he rules his empire. I thought that was a cool idea. Yeah. I just wish, and I liked that he wasn't necessarily downright cruel. Like it would have been very easy for him to be a Koba type.
Yeah.
But he was just kind of like more charismatic. Like he obviously didn't care if like anybody died or whatever. He could rule with an iron fist, but he was just like, oh, apes together strong. So why am I going to kill my workforce? Even though I'm like capturing my workforce.
I killed some people to kidnap you from your home, but now that you're here, you're part of the family.
Yeah. And it was just interesting. I couldn't tell where, and this is the hard part, because not like when they're all just, you know, black or gray apes or whatever, and they all
Hmm.
blend together, unless you're focusing on like the main characters, you really don't know who's on Proximus's side and who
Sure.
is just like a labor force.
Yeah.
Because it always seems like, oh, well, there's, for all I knew, there was 10 gorillas who were like his bodyguards, and then the other 500 gorilla apes here were just like the workforce.
Yeah.
So it's like they could have easily risen up at
Yeah.
any time.
It was
Uh,
like I know they had little red markings on their foreheads, but that doesn't do much for
yeah, like
wide
they all
shots.
needed like a
Like anybody who's wearing a collar shoulder pad thing, you've been accepted as part of the kingdom. You're
mhm.
on my side, and that's something you have to earn. And so
Yeah,
if you see anybody without it, they're not part of the team.
because earlier on in the movie you have Noah, and he was very protective of his mom's blue
Yeah.
shirt, let's say,
Yeah.
I don't know, blanket. But he ends up giving it to Nova. But it's just like, man, it would have been great if like all the apes from the village all had a certain color
Sure.
thing. And so it's like, okay, we know these are
Yeah.
the I forget the name of their home, if they even said it.
I don't
But it's
I
like
don't know if they did.
these are the village apes or whatever. So
Yeah.
we know they're who we're looking out for. But
Hmm.
really it's just a mishmash of just every ape looking the same.
Yeah.
So that was a little hard to follow.
Speaking of hard to follow, once they get into the vault, we'll
Mhm.
say, they open the door, and there was an ape that ratted them out to Proximus. He's standing there waiting, and there's an ape kind of like, going, see, I told you. That wasn't his mom, because she wouldn't do that. So was it just some random ape that knew?
No, I thought it was.
Because his buddy was with him, his girl was with him.
I thought it was. I mean, I don't remember.
Because at
I
first,
thought it
like,
was his mom. It just wasn't like they ratted him out. It was I'm just have the mom here, kind of like
no, because
looking.
they're just standing there, and then as soon as the doors open more, that ape walks away. And I thought, oh, is
Oh,
it? Is it the mom? And if they said, I'm sorry, I had to say, if I didn't say something, he was going to kill you, and I'm trying to save your life, that
I
makes sense.
I
But
don't remember it enough. I
okay,
guess.
well, regardless.
But I mean, ultimately, I liked him fine.
Hmm.
Just in terms of like standout performance or what made him such a great villain. I don't really have anything that.
Hmm.
Uh, I don't think he had enough screen time to really like have
Yeah, he
a
doesn't show up until like halfway through the
yeah.
movie. It's a real shame.
But another positive of this movie, despite there still being a human element to it, there's really not much human stuff in it.
No, not really.
Because even when Nova's with them, she's silent for a good portion of the time. But really, this is the Noah movie.
Yeah.
I don't know. Obviously, it was the Caesar movie and the other ones, but Caesar was always interacting with human and a group of
Hmm.
humans, and it was always like, will we be at war with humans? They're not at war with humans at
Hmm.
all in this movie. It's ape versus ape, and I'm just like, if you cut out the human element entirely, I'd be interested to just see a Planet of the Apes movie where it's just apes,
Yeah.
and like let me forget that humans exist because now you're putting a real thing next to a fake thing,
Hmm.
and it doesn't make it worse by any means, but now you kind of realize like, oh yeah, I am watching a CGI
Yeah.
thing. But once you if the first that's why I love the first hour of this movie so much, just because it's just apes, humans don't really pop up, and you can just focus on like storytelling and world building and all that stuff. And I just thought all of it was great,
Yeah.
and I'd love to see more of this world. And it got me excited for the franchise again because I wasn't expecting much from this, but I got a lot out of it. Um,
But it
and
feels like it's a studio thing of, well, we need the human perspective on this. Like, no, we don't. This is not a story about humans. It's a Planet of the Apes.
mhm,
The important thing is the apes. So doing this, she's a secret spy.
yeah,
She's so let's talk about the ending.
let's get to the ending.
They're trying to get into this vault so she can get some hard drive, and she's turning stuff on, and you have to go, oh, okay. She knows too much about this. Her language is too good to even be a smart human.
Mhm.
So she's up to something. Oh, she's getting a hard drive to take back to her people, and they are trying to get their satellites to work, and which I think can be fine. It could be a fine, interesting story of, well, what is it that they're doing? Are they trying to contact other humans so they can fight the apes? Are they just trying to contact them just to stay in contact to find other intelligent humans?
Mhm.
who are these people? Have they, since they had to wear a suit to go outside to get the hard drive from her, they're still afraid of the virus and they're spraying down the suit and everything. So they've been in this thing for 300 years, just breeding with each other and teaching their offspring what to do for this mission that is what? And I think introducing this is kind of like that army in war. It's like you're introducing a thing that is not defined and you don't give us any good reason why they're there. Oh, you'll just have to find out in the future. I don't want that. I don't want humans in my future movies.
Yeah.
If you get to eventually to original Planet of the Apes and you have a spaceship come down and someone's like, whoa, you blew it all up, blah, that's fine. If you want to retell that story, but I don't need you teasing that along the way. It can just happen. I wanted our next movie to be, they do start learning more science. They're having their Roman Empire and they're having their chariot races and their gladiatorial fights and they're building roads and things. It's getting bigger and bigger. So we can see the evolution that would lead to Planet of the Apes. And now it feels like we're taking a step back because, now the humans are a threat again and we don't care.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I could have done without the ending too. Not that I necessarily hated the ending, because I mean, I get it. You want to end in a way that keeps people excited, because I think the movie really does end where Noah and I say Nova, but her name's May.
Yeah.
Have their final talk, and I like that. Even though they were friends for a long time, there's that shot of her holding the gun behind her back. And
was she expecting Noah to turn on her or something? Because it seemed almost like Noah was going to go on Proximus' side at the end. It feels like he was saying, well, Hitler did some okay things, like he was sympathizing with that. And was that just for her protection? Because I think that would have been an interesting take. That,
well, he just didn't want his mom to die.
Okay.
Or his girlfriend to die or whatever.
But like, if you look at Proximus as this bad dude, but if he was kind of like the secret good guy, you would have to change some things about like raiding villages and things like that. But if he had actual good intentions, it's just from an outsider, It looks like what he's doing is really bad. And he isn't the villain. He is a good guy. Maybe he knows about the humans because William H. Macy, maybe he was part of that group. And then he saw how advanced they are getting and maybe how fucked up the human stuff was. Like, well, I'm not going back there. I'm going to defect to them, kind of like the donkeys in war. Yeah. And then William H. Macy tells him, there are other humans out there that are intelligent. You need to prepare for them potentially attacking. Yeah. And I think just doing that little bit of a flip where Noah goes, oh, he actually is kind of a good guy. Maybe he has some extreme methods or whatever, but I see his bigger vision for the future.
Or, he's not a good guy, but he is right to like prepare for the worst kind of thing. And then you have Proximus die, and then Proximus is just like, all right, kid, now it's you. Now you rule, kind of thing.
Hey, kid, catch. Tosses the crown.
Yeah. And so now he's got to, am I going to become, and that could be the tease, but it's like, am I going to rule justly, or am I going to try and rule as Caesar did and work with the humans or try and coexist, or am I going to rule like Proximus did and just, we need to wipe out the enemy because there will never be any coexistence.
I think that would be good to have. Like, you don't kill Rocca,
but I think you get that at the end. Sorry, I didn't mean to
interrupt. No, that's fine.
Their conversation in the end, I like that conversation because it's like they both are like, or at least Noah's like, I want to work with you, but you've shown me I can't trust you. And she feels the same. It's like, my whole life you've been the enemy, and I just used you to get this thing that will help us try and get back, because we were the dominant species. Why would we settle for anything less?
Yeah.
So I like that conversation. It's like you can tell that they both wanted to, like, they wanted it to work, but I think both of them are kind of like, I can't see it actually doing that.
It would have been nice if Rocca didn't die and he was brought back and Proximus was just like, my old advisor. And they're the two sides of the coin of what Caesar should be. And, Proxima doesn't like that. Rocca maybe has his religion and they view Caesar a certain way. And, Rocca doesn't like Proximus because he's bastardizing who Caesar was. But they're not at each other's throats, murdering each other. It's more of a political thing. Like we're trying to, all apes need to work together. We are strong together, so we need to stay together. But they just both have different ways of kind of getting that message across.
Yeah.
And so neither one is good or bad. And then Noah's just in the middle. He doesn't have to rise to power or anything, but he helps the girl, and she fucks stuff up so bad that it kind of crumbles their society, and then maybe it radicalizes him, and now he is on the flip and say, okay, fuck humans, they're bad. Caesar was great, and yeah, we need to join together, but now we need to go find them and we need to exterminate them.
Or you could do it in a way where, William H. Macy's character is kind of, you see him as kind of this advisor character to Proximus in terms of, teaching him all these things. And, Proximus seems to be the main villain, but really William H. Macy was, kind of tricking
He's
him.
the worm tongue.
He's the worm tongue. And so then you find the big bad was William H. Macy all along. Proximus dies. William H. Macy, they kill him at the end. And it's just like, oh, so now we can have Noah become leader or whatever. But then he has Raka as his ape advisor, and he has May as his human advisor. And it's like, look, if we're going to try this, but like, I can't trust you and your people can't trust me. But I need to speak for the apes as well. So that's Raka's job. So you guys are my war council or whatever, and we're going to do our best. And so you have this character who now is like, for lack of a better term, devil and angel on their shoulder. And it's like, how do I try and balance both these societies who want to exist? We're on the rise, they're on the way down. But if they get a hold of their nukes or their machine guns, we could be in trouble. And it's like, do we give our people this stuff, or will that make us just as bad as them? Like, there's so many cool, fun ideas you could do in this world.
Are they contacting a spaceship or a space station that has people in it, and then we're leading to that? Or, because, it's been 300 years. That ship that took off in Rise, unless it goes through a wormhole, it can't be those same people.
There was a ship that took off in Rise?
It's on the news. They're just like, Space Shuttle Orion takes off today, and then boom, done. And then they're just eating breakfast. It's just a little nod like, well, maybe we'll do this in the future.
Got it.
Yeah.
I don't think there's some human space station.
Yeah, because even if there was, there's like always 7 to 10 people on a space station. The breeding would be really weird after 300 years, and it would run out of power and probably fall out of the sky. So but it's like, who are they contacting?
Well, yeah, I think it's just. Well, they said
just another bunker?
May's character said that, when society was crumbling and the last remnants of humanity went to a safe spot, it was these vaults. So because there was the one she went to at the end and the vault that they got into earlier, obviously there's some throughout the world, or at least we can assume that there's. So there are pockets of humanity that could be anywhere, and obviously you have them contacting someone on the other line. So there are other factions of humans that have survived this long that have all just been living underground. So I just wish we had more time with just apes. We see their society, like, let's go, this is their time. Proximus is the villain. No William H. Macy, no Freya. They're just, whatever this conflict is, a totally different movie. And then we jump another 200 years in the future. And now they're like samurais or something like that. Not necessarily dressed in samurai katanas, but like they have now jumped into technology. They have more traditional houses they've built.
There's industry. There's metalworking.
They've learned to sail, something like that. And then we jump another 3, and then it's like, oh wait, humans have survived 1,000 years underground, and we haven't realized because we just thought that they all died off or whatever. And then you can have like the last big bet, like the last fight of planet Earth of apes versus I guess you still have to have like the feral ones going around because that's ties into the old one.
Yeah.
And then you can go from there. I don't need humans for a bit. No. That's all I'm saying.
And that's why, like,
this movie
I think
proves it.
Introducing it in this movie, it just I know that's where they're going for the next movie. Because why introduce it so early? And I really don't need that. I just want to see the ape evolution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last little bit. Did you like the final... I'm turning to you now. Did you like the final sequence with the Black Panther fight at the top of
Oh,
the
and then all
cliff, and
the
the Eagles
eagles
comes
attack
in.
him. It wasn't bad, but having him just splash into the water is like, oh, well, Rocket died in the water, and now Proximus died in the water. Eh, kind of boring.
Yeah.
He needed to land on a rock, or at least hit a rock on the way down.
I mean, I like their Eagle song, and I liked him just like shooting eagles at him to
Yeah.
fight. Like that was all very cool. Um, but yeah, I wish Raka came back at the end there.
Yeah.
But the thing that drove me crazy, and that was one of the things I was saying earlier. With I couldn't tell who was Proximus's force and who was
Yeah.
just his labor force. So all of his village get to the top. It's just them and Proximus. And now I know they're all afraid of Proximus, but he is by himself. There are no big scary gorilla
Yeah.
guys. There's no bodyguards. It's 60 chimpanzees versus one other chimpanzee.
Mm-hmm.
Why do
He's a
they?
gorilla, isn't he? Isn't he like just a smaller gorilla?
Maybe he's a smaller group. Whatever.
Yeah.
Point is, just all of you curb stomp this guy. Like,
Yeah.
there's no reason all of you shouldn't have just beat the shit out of this
They
dude.
all should have done the motion of strong together, and they all just circle him.
Yeah.
And he's like, "You listen to me," and they're just like, "Strong together, strong," and just slowly let
Or
him walk
like,
off
yeah,
the
you
edge.
can have that one-on-one fight, and they're all like, maybe it doesn't click to them right away because they've been, in slave encampment for so long, or maybe they're just like, hopefully this kid can beat him up, so we don't have to. And then you have, he's about to deliver the final blow, and the kid puts his hands up like that, and like you said, I like that idea. And then they're like, oh yeah, no, we should team up, guys. And then they jump him, and then it's like the hyenas from the Lion King or something like that. I mean, the Eagles is more cinematic and cooler. It makes more sense for their people.
For them,
So I get why they didn't do that.
Yeah.
But it was just frustrating. Like, guys, your friend is getting his ass whooped. Like, there's no reason none of you, like, any of you can't just jump in and help him. Like, this isn't some rule where, like, oh, if we jump in, then the fight doesn't count. Like, there's no laws here. So that was a little silly, but I still like how it ended. All in all, I'm leaning. I want to say A minus.
Yeah. It's
like
a B plus,
but at the same time, there's like enough with it where I was like, it's still probably it's either 4 or 3 on the list. So it feels weird that I probably didn't give those other. I probably gave Dawn and War maybe an A or an A minus. I doubt I gave them Bs.
Yeah.
But so I'm going to say the highest B plus I can give it. But I'm very happy it exists. I'm very glad I watched it. I had a good time, and I look forward to the rest of the franchise.
Yeah. Now, there's only like kind of 4 apes that we see in this: gorillas, chimps, orangutans, and bonobos. What?
I think I know where you're going with this. My wife asked me the same question, just like, so are other like
animals getting smarter?
Well, she just said, are other types of monkeys getting smart? Like, are lemurs or anything?
See, I wouldn't say lemurs, but I would say like mandrills, like Rafiki from Lion King. I would like to see an intelligent mandrill. They're scary as fuck. Yep. What about the ones with the weird butts? Are those also mandrills? I don't know. But I'd like to see some of the monkeys, the non-apes.
Yeah.
The things with tails. And then you could start having, monkey racism. And like, oh, you don't have a tail? Ew, you're gross. No, you have a tail? What the fuck? Yeah.
Or would like the smaller ones be like pets too? Or like not necessarily, but like they could still be smart and talk, but it's just like, oh, well, now I have this lemur companion who like cracks jokes when I'm on my
grapes,
adventure. I don't know. That could be something.
I wouldn't mind another village of other animals. Maybe they haven't gotten to that point, but because they share enough DNA that it has started to spread to them. I don't need to see talking horses or anything like that.
My guess is the only reason that we don't is that, if I remember correctly, in Rise, the only type of that we're getting experimented on were chimpanzees, orangutans, gorillas.
Yeah, I think it's just like the ape family. Yeah, and everything that like these.
So there's no reason for the other ones to get smart.
Yeah, but because of the virus that spread and it made humans dumb, why can't?
Yeah, you could do some sci-fi bullshit. Yeah. You'd be like, all right, fine.
The humans are trying to find a cure for that so they can go outside, and then they just like do it again and make the apes even smarter, but then it adds intelligence to all the other animals too. And god damn it, we really suck at this.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if you're calling it Planet of the Apes and then you have non-apes
Monkeys,
be...
Yep. It's like, Empire of the Planet of the Apes, Rise of the Monkeys.
There you
Let's
go.
get as long of a title as humanly possible. So what would you think is because this one was supposed to be called Empire and then they changed it to Kingdom, which I think is better. Like, oh, you have a kingdom and then next one would be Empire and then you would have you can't do
Country of the Apes.
you can't do conquest, but like tyranny of the Planet of the Apes, something like that, or tyrant. You know, you have one King Kong comes off of Skull Island and
Oh
he's smart and
shit.
he's talking to all of them. Yeah, like I think the next one will probably be called Empire, but like, what do you? Obviously, it matters of what the story is because you'd go like, oh, Rise, Dawn, and something, but like, oh, it's about war. We have to call this one War. So
Yeah. War is a catchier title,
yeah,
I
and
get it.
I feel really dumb. It wasn't until this rewatching that it's War for the Planet of the Apes. It's the only one, like, they're all something of the planet of the, and it's war for the Planet of the Apes. And I didn't realize that.
There you go.
Okay.
Um, so do you have an idea for like, so when the next movie comes out, are we sticking with Noah? Are we doing a time jump? It's a whole new set of apes.
I'd like to stay with Noah just because you should have a main character that we know and like, but I want to see like you see the declination of the human race in the first trilogy, and it happens relatively quick. Now that it's 300 years in the future, they have a bit of farming and raising animals, but it's not a huge jump. So if you did another sequel with Noah, you're not going to get that big jump. So I would like 100 years. You know, maybe Noah's still alive and he's ancient. He's Cranky Kong, and
He's going across the world spreading the word of Caesar.
sure, you know,
Yeah.
or yeah, if you're going to do that, he's a missionary, he's a Mormon, he's trying to indoctrinate all these other apes, and you see the fishing village ape, you know, the stripper ape. I don't know why I went to stripper. Jesus Christ. But like, yeah, you see other towns who don't know about Caesar and how did they come about. But I would like a jump. I want to see them in their coliseums. I want an actual empire. Yeah, I don't need them to be driving cars and getting up to a modern age or anything, but I would like to see them hammering out metal, doing artwork, you know, tapestries, you know, just advance a little bit more.
Yeah. Or even if it's like not all apes, but while Noah's on his quest or adventure there, you know, he runs across a new village where they were able to decipher human words and like learned or like you find he travels and he found the Louvre or whatever. And so all these apes are like just studying these paint.
That's a big ocean to cross. We're pretty much
I'm just saying, like, they discover
a museum,
a art museum or something like that, and so now you have all these like hippie apes or whatever who are like smoking weed and doing paintings and like discuss. And they become sort of philosopher apes, and it's like
with dreadlocks and stuff. That'd be
cool. But so you have, you know, Noah who's talking about Caesar and telling them, and he's like, oh, well, you know, we blah, blah, blah. We learned about, have you heard about this guy, Jesus? He's very similar. And not that we need to bring Jesus in, but I'm just saying, like, I'd like them, it'd be fun to see, like, that sort of thing is develop more culture.
If they did, like, learn to read, but they only had the Wizard of Oz, and then that's becomes their religion, like, they're just taking things and turning it into religion, and they look at Noah as this weird heretic, like, who the fuck is, how do you know that Caesar was alive? Do you have a book about him? Well, we have this one called The Wizard of Oz, and, you know, the Grand Wizard lives in his green castle, and blah, 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 you know, and you know, they started growing plants so they can do their monkey drugs and stuff like that. I like hippie monkeys. That's a fun idea.
But I'd like that idea too. It's just like, he lives in the Emerald City, and because all this foliage is growing around, like, this is our Emerald City.
Yeah.
And you could do some fun stuff with that. I like that. But there's endless potential.
Absolutely.
You could pull anything from anything and make these apes believe whatever, and how they just take that one piece of information. You build a whole society around it. Like I fucking love that shit.
Yeah.
Give me more of that. Don't give me humans like, we gotta take these chimps down.
Yeah.
I don't care.
But like, who's the villain? Because we've had a gorilla, we've had a chimp. Like, that's why I want to see like mandrills.
Crocodiles.
I'd like to see another type of a monkey like creature. That would be good. Like, what if the intelligent monkeys they're not as smart, and so that's why they're kind of hippie like. You know, they're just
Mhm.
all fun loving. Like they're smart enough to understand things, but they're not, doing agriculture or training birds or anything like that. So, yeah, you make the hippies monkeys and the smart ones apes.
Well, my guess is, if you're not backed into the wall of making a human or a gorilla, I think a baboon or mandrill or whatever you want to call it,
Yeah,
uh,
baboons are the ones with butts.
the big scary Rafiki ones.
Yeah, that's mandrill. Yeah.
Okay.
God, they're scary.
Yeah, but exactly. Like that is a scary looking thing. And obviously it's smaller, but what if those ones are now evolving too? And so this one's like, we are lesser beings or whatever. Or maybe there's just a gorilla who like teams up with a bunch of baboons or whatever, or
Trains them.
and just trains them. And so now
Yeah.
you just have this, they're kind of like the wargs from
Yeah,
Lord of the
yeah.
Rings. And so that's his like vicious attack dog monkeys or
Mhm.
whatever. And you can just have something cool like that.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
And because I think maybe the next one is Noah's able to team up with humans because there is this invading force of big, strong, scary monkeys, apes, whatever, and they're a huge army, and so they're able to work together and like there is a future for us here,
Mhm.
and then betrayal happens in the third one, and they're like, no, this is never going to work out. And then you have the tease of a motherfucker coming down on the spaceship, and who
Yeah.
cares? But I think the next movie is like the last hope for humans and apes to work together,
Mhm.
and the third one just blows it all out the water, and just
Okay.
like now there's no hope for
Okay.
humanity
Okay.
anymore.
So, I want to ask a question that I just kind of thought of. In the original, I know you didn't see the original one, but you know the ending, the Statue of Liberty is on the beach.
Yes.
As a kid, I just assumed that's where the Statue of Liberty was. You know, like, oh, well, that's where it was and it crumbled because they blew it up. Are we supposed to assume, like, it floated there? It washed up on the beach? I never even really thought about that till right now. Because it's in New York. There's no beach cliff sides in New York. So it had to have washed up on the shore of someplace else, right?
I think you're thinking too much into it, and they didn't think at all about it.
Okay.
My guess is it's been so long that the planet does shift. We used to be Pangea, so I just imagine that those shores have changed over time, and since those cities have crumbled,
The
then
cities have crumbled, but the statue has stayed.
yep.
Okay.
No,
I like my idea better. I think it just
I think
washed
it just
up.
it probably just
Yeah.
floated there
Okay.
somehow.
Well, what are we doing next week? Do you know what's out next week? Did you do your homework, Steve? Did you do your homework?
Is it Furiosa?
No, that's
Damn
2
it.
weeks from now. It's Strangers,
Mm,
If,
okay.
and it's Back to Black, the Amy Winehouse
Oh.
movie.
Well, it sounds like a great week for another This
This
Meets
means
That.
that, yeah.
This Meets That.
I'll see Strangers. I do not give a shit about Amy Winehouse. I do not care about If. So
I don't care about any of them in particular.
Yeah.
I could maybe do Strangers,
No,
but
that's
if I have
fine.
the time, but
No, I'm going to see that just for myself.
Yeah.
I had so much fun doing This Meets That last week that it really made me think, can we integrate it into every week? Because it's just too much fun.
yeah, we have a good time.
Yeah. All right. Well, if you want to get in contact with us, we are at WRPL podcast at gmail.com. We're on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Threads. What do you think? Did that Statue of Liberty just wash up there or did it crumble there? Smarter nerds and fanboys, you let me know. As always, I'm Ben.
And I'm Steve.
And keep consuming.